Welcome, chess friends, to the 60-minute DVD on the Bogo Indian. The line that we are going to focus on today has become very popular recently. Many top players have started playing it. You can check it from the black side and you would find all the top players like Ivanchuk, Moisenko, Tomaszewski, Nawara, and so many other players playing it in the past 1 or 2 years. So what is this line that I'm talking about from the black side? Well, let's get the moves on the board. It's d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight to f3. And well, the best part about playing the Bogo Indian is that over here, the Bogo Indian with bishop b4 check, is that you don't need to have a separate repertoire for 3g3. You can just play bishop b4. So we are not going to focus on g3, it will transpose. After knight to f3, bishop b4 check, and usually white here has two main moves. Bishop d2. He could play knight to d2, which is the other main line, but we won't cover it here. Knight c3 of course leads to the Nimzo Indian. So, but bishop d2 is the main move in this position, and there are many moves here like a5, c5, even bishop into d2, but queen e7 is my proposed repertoire here. And after this, white plays the move g3. And for many years, players were going knight c6 here. This is the way people used to play. And after knight c3, which turned out to be quite a good move, because bishop g2, people would take on d2, and after knight d2, you cannot take with the queen. I will explain it later to you. d6 followed by e5, and black used to get good positions. But white players started to improve with knight to c3, and this line has been covered by Boris Avrukh in his wonderful book on 1d4, and then later on a lot of theory developed on it, and I think white has a good position here. Of course black has his own chances, but what we will see here is instead of knight c6, we first take on d2, and mainly white plays queen takes d2, because if you play knight d2, then I can just play d6 with the idea of e5, and usually I can just show you like how the play would continue. After d6 e5, let's say you play d5 castle, you can go a5 followed by knight a6 and bishop d7 with the idea of playing c6. The main drawback for white in such structures is that his knight on d2 would be excellently placed on c3, but on d2 it's not so good. Okay, so over here knight takes d2 is rarely played. One of my opponents, Romanov, played knight fd2. I don't think that it's particularly threatening move. You just go d6 with the idea of e5. In the game against Romanov, I unnecessarily played knight to c6, and then I had to waste a tempo, I guess, because after knight c6, e3, d6, I guess bishop g2, e5, d5, I had to go back with my knight. So I propose that you just play directly d6 and e5 instead of knight c6. Okay, so let's come back to the main move. You play queen takes d2, and after knight to c6, you get this position by force almost, because there was not much deviations. Now black threatens the move knight to e4, and that's exactly what my point is, that bishop g2 is a bad move, because after knight e4 black equalizes and maybe even gets a small edge. The queen cannot stop white queen cannot stop queen b4 check now. And let's say after queen c2, queen b4, there are difficulties because knight bd2 takes, and you cannot take with the f3 knight because d4 pawn hangs, and after queen d2, queen takes c4. Black has won a pawn, and okay, there is some compensation for white. You can look into this position, but I would say this is far from dangerous for black. Okay, so after knight to c6, knight e4 is a threat, so white usually replies knight to c3. And over here, a new move has been played nowadays, and that is b3, which is interesting. We are going to analyze this move in some detail in one of the clips. But knight c3 remains the main move, and after knight c3 we go d5 because in a way he was angling to play e4, so we stop it with d5. And here this is the critical position. Over here white has got mainly 4 moves, but 2 of them kind of transpose, so you can say 3 options in this position. The first one is c takes d5, and after e takes d5 we reach some kind of Carlsbad pawn structure. You can see these pawns here similar to QGD, black pawns standing here, but the difference is that knight on c6 is not so well placed, but that is balanced by the fact that white is going to develop his bishop to g2, which would also not be well placed. So the bishop is usually good on the other diagonal from f1 to d3. So this position, according to me, should be even. There is no problems for black here. We will discuss it in one of the segments. Going back here, after d5, cd5 is one of the options that we just saw. The other one is bishop to g2, and here I recommend that you play in active style and you take the pawn on c4. And I would say this is one of the most critical positions in the opening because after knight e5, black must play accurately. We will discuss this position in good amount of depth. So bishop g2 is one option, and white could play knight e5 directly on the 8th move, but after dc4 usually the play will transpose because white will at some point play bishop g2 and we get the similar position. Lastly, the move that is becoming extremely popular now is the move b3. Again, we saw b3 on the 7th move, and now we see it on the 8th move here, b3, defending the c4 pawn, and you need to be well prepared against that too. But if you leave this, white doesn't have any other moves left, so you see the options at white's disposal are pretty narrow, and we are going to cover all these moves one by one in the next few clips. And let's get started with the first possibility in the position, that is c takes d5. I will see you in the next segment.